today's pod, we'll be speaking with accompanist and founding member of the Austin Gay Men's Chorus, Karl. We'll find out what it was like at the start 31 years ago, how he's seen things grow and change over the years. We'll also have some news on upcoming virtual projects and what we can do to stay involved with the Austin Gay Men's Chorus community. From the Visceral Noise Studios in Austin, Texas, I'm Dale Sandish.
And I'm Mark Flores, and this is One Voice.
Welcome and bienvenue, welcome.
Because you're gay, you're really, really gay, you're super gay.
Duh. I'm 58 years old. I'm a man with two Shih Tzus who spent his entire career working in the musical theater. You do the math.
You know they have cleanups for that.
Yes.
So, Dinky, what did you think of our first ever Glamazoom Tuesdays?
You know, I thought it was a raging success.
I thought it was raging for a lot of other reasons too, but
I had a blast. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Me too.
It was wonderful to see people participating in that way. We crowned our first Glamazoom queen.
That's right. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. What's the name? Pacifica?
Lisa Pacifica.
Lisa Pacifica, also known
as Luke Johnson.
Luke Johnson's.
Luke Johnson's.
And we had Austin and Kaylin. It was really a lot of fun.
It was.
We've got another one coming up.
Next week is going to be, also a lot.
This one coming up Tuesday, May 5th, is going to be a hoot and a holla. I'm very excited.
You almost said Tuesday. I mean, so now it's really difficult to not say Tuesday.
I agree. It's become part of my lexicon. But we're going to be welcoming Moses Bravo and Will Perry.
That's a great name.
I know, isn't it?
Moses Bravo. What an amazing name.
It's got history and it's got
it's like praise. The parting of the seas and applause at the same time.
I know.
It's amazing.
Our third and final contestant will be Adam Stone.
Also a really great porn name. I mean, name.
It is. It ends in a nice
hardness. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, let's see. In fact, before we go on, those of you who didn't see the Glamazoom Tuesday, as I said, you can see it
Tuesday.
You can see it this coming Tuesday. But I want to play the audio from the opening sequence that I wrote and sang to. So let's give that a listen. I'm gonna click on Glamazoom, gonna have myself a time. Gonna turn off Tiger King, stop playing with my ding-a-ling. Gonna click on Glamazoom, gonna leave my woes behind. Finding cures with bleeding leeches, shooting up with household bleaches. Gonna click on Glamazoom, gonna see if I can't unwind. Jacking wigs and beating faces, drag queens practice social graces. So go on, click on Glamazoom and meet some friends of mine. Also, before we introduce our guest, I want to play this piece of choral music that I'm in love with. I listen to it regularly, and I just want to play another section. This is To Singing, and it was composed by today's guest, a founding member of the Capital City Men's Chorus. He's been the accompanist for the chorus for every season of its existence. And he's the first recipient of the Karl Award, given annually to a member of the chorus who has displayed exemplary service. Of course, we can only be referring to our very own Karl Logue. Welcome to the pod.
Welcome, Karl.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
It's wonderful to see your face, too. We haven't seen each other live for, well, how long has it been now? How long have we been in sequestered?
It's like a month and a half, right?
7 weeks?
7 weeks, really? Wow.
7 weeks, wow. Yeah, in one sense, it seems to be going by quickly, and in another sense, time has stopped. How do you feel about that? Do you feel things are moving quickly, or?
On the one hand, I feel like I'm as busy as I've ever been. On the other hand, I can't tell you what day it is.
Yeah, I agree.
How's it been for you at home with your husband?
Probably similar to a lot of people, a lot of getting used to being around your spouse 24/7.
Right.
How many of us have ever had that experience? We see them at the end of the workday, on weekends, and here it's 24/7, eating every meal together.
Mm-hmm.
Are you enjoying it? Is it sometimes stressful? How do you manage it?
For us, I think the real trick has been finding our own things to do so that we're not in each other's presence all that time. Jim's a fantastic gardener. We even won Garden of the Month for our neighborhood. And it's all due to his work.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Way to go, Jim.
I'll pass on your
Please do.
Wishes.
I really like Jim. He's a really sweet man. As are you. So I can see why you are so attracted to each other.
Yeah. Hard to believe we've been together for as long as the chorus has been around. So this is our 31st year.
Wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
How did you meet? Did
Even
you meet
after all these years, he's still hot.
he is, actually.
How did you meet, Karl?
We met at church, believe it or not, Metropolitan Community Church back in, I believe it was 87.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
That's great.
All right. Well, the piece of music that I played, To Singing, is something that we've performed with the Austin Gay Men's Chorus in its full weight with the orchestra. And I've always wondered what inspired you for that piece. What was the inspiration?
The Austin Gay Men's Chorus is actually directly responsible for the creation of that work. My experience with the chorus when it was a foundling chorus, and we were not sure it was going to make it. We didn't know what we had wrought. And for this piece was written in 2006, so that would have been 16 years after the founding of the chorus. The director at the time, Jeffrey, asked me to write something for the chorus, and we were going to be performing Naked Man. And so he said, "You've got the Naked Man Orchestra to work with." I was like, fantastic. And I didn't know what I was going to write about for a little bit. And a common friend of both mine and Jeffrey's was a poet, George Clawletter. He was a professor at St. Edward's University for decades. And I sent him just this long missive, just a description of my experience with the chorus over the years and what I saw it mean to people in their lives and what it's meant to me in my life. And about a week later, maybe it was 2 weeks, I don't remember how long, he sends back this poem that encapsulated that huge email into this beautiful thing that turned into To Singing.
Wonderful. Yeah, it really sparks a lot in my mind about my coming out story and singing with others of like mind.
It makes me, it sort of encapsulates my experience of finding gay choruses in general. I sang for the New York City Gay Men's Chorus and now this one. And so when I found them, it was like a spiritual experience to, be lifted up and become part of an organization that was dedicated to changing the world through song.
Yeah, and Karl, since you were there at the beginning, can you describe what that first meeting was like 31 years ago?
Yeah, I can. I actually still have it pretty vividly emblazoned on my brain. We met for the very first time at Metropolitan Community Church when they had a little bit. They had taken a house in East Austin and converted it into a church. And I think about 17 guys showed up, and our director, who had obviously volunteered for the position because he's a founding member, brought out some music that was, just kind of test the waters. And the very first thing we sang, believe it or not, was the Star Spangled Banner. All of it. Most people have no idea how long that thing really is. And it sounded awful. Just. And after the rehearsal, David and I got together and we were like, what have we done? Is this a thing? Is it going to, what are we going to do with it? And at the time I just said, go with it. Well, let's find out what happens. And rather quickly, we went from 17 to like 50 or 60 members. And I think it was in our second year, we actually got up into the 70s. It was kind of amazing. And we did our first concert at, I think it was at Bates.
Really?
And people poured out in droves. It was just astonishing. We had no idea what we had done.
The choruses, the gay men's choruses, Mark, you can speak to this as well. They began as a response to the AIDS crisis, a way of mourning, a way of celebrating.
I mean, it took hold as a part of the AIDS crisis. It was really originally the spark was the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus as a response to the Harvey Milk assassination. That night at the candlelight vigil at City Hall, sort of the beginnings of what was the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus sang. And then it very quickly after that became a movement around AIDS. So yeah,
I met Mayor Moscone, who also was assassinated that night. I met his granddaughter.
Oh wow!
2 years ago here in Austin. I just noticed it was the same last name. I said, are you related in any way to Moscone from San Francisco? She said, yeah, that was my grandfather.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I said, I have to tell you, we, as being a gay man and singing in a men's chorus, and this was just before we did our concert at where was it? It was the theater that had the really high rise, and they've got an upstairs big space, big concert venue here in town. Anyway, we were in the small black box theater, and we were doing.
Oh, that would be the Rollins Theater.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. We were doing a tribute to. We had big signs with pictures of Harvey Milk and so on. I don't remember the piece that we were actually.
That was for A Little Respect.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
yeah.
I produced that, so that's why
you did a wonderful job. But that was at the same time that we were working on that piece, and so I mentioned that we were honoring that time period in gay history and how much we appreciated her father's attention to the gay culture back in San Francisco back then, and being a prominent figure in the gay rights movement. So she was touched. She was genuinely touched. So that's
you met her at that concert?
No, I met her at the hotel I was working at.
Oh, okay.
She was checking in, and I said, "Were you related to the Moscones?"
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
she said, yeah, the memory of her grandfather was still quite strong, and she was quite proud of him.
Of course. Hey, Karl. So I just want to, for the sake of this recording, name some of the things that you've done. I did a little bit of homework on you. Some of your original compositions to singing, of course, which we've been discussing. Sing Me Home, One Man to Another, Embers, We Are Not Afraid to Love, which I've sang and it's beautiful. Clyde, Meditating Mood for solo piano. And that list goes on. some other collaborations, music and songs for Jonathan Livingston Seagull that you did with Zachary Scott Theater. Also music for Fathering Moon at Zach Scott, Resurrection. You've done arrangements of Home, Hinamatov, Sing We Now of Christmas, Old Lang Syne, which I sang, which is also gorgeous. Simple Gifts, which we just sang. Bewitched, Pure Imagination, The Endless Night, and The First Noel, also sang that. The Girl from Ipanema, and the list goes on. It's quite a resume. You're also a bit of an IT guy, right? You worked for Dell Computer for years.
Yeah,
programming.
Nearly 2 decades, 17 years.
It's amazing. And you're an accomplished piano teacher. You have your own studio. You teach do you teach composition as well, or?
Actually, I do. I encourage all of my students to pursue that to some degree. To me, it's as vital to learn composition as it is to learn to speak your own sentences.
We just collaborated with you. Take note on something that we're going to be releasing soon. You did an arrangement of Barry Manilow's One Voice, which is absolutely gorgeous, and you've been the sound tech on that, the engineer. Am I correct?
Yeah. With a great deal of help from Robert Kurzweil.
Yes, also talented.
He's also amazing. Yeah.
Was it hard, just I'm going to interject here. Was it difficult to line up the voices for the? Can you just basically tell us what the process was like for you?
This was a learning process for everybody. Virtual projects are far more difficult than they look. No matter how well all the voices sang, the reality is consonants will end up in slightly different places because you can't hear each other.
Right.
And so it ended up being the final product is magnificent. I'm very happy with it.
It is. It's gorgeous.
But I had to literally touch every note from every singer. It was mind-boggling.
Oh my God.
Well, you figure that at least 50% of choral singing is listening. And if you take that out of the equation, you've got a massive undertaking.
Exactly.
So kudos to you for tackling that.
I was working with 12 soloists, not 12 chorus members.
Right.
Right. Thanks for making it sound good.
I've been known to be a soloist even when I am hearing with the chorus.
I don't know at all what you're talking about. Hale.
Daniel has pointed that out to me many times.
Same here. So a lot of people are making the connection with the global pandemic and what happened to the world back in the 1980s with the AIDS epidemic. Do you feel that there are similarities or differences to that time?
I've seen those comparisons, and I think they're false. Yes, they're both viruses, and the comparisons really end there,
right.
because of the route of transmission.
Right.
Right.
AIDS came with a horrible stigma. Coronavirus, if you've got it, it's kind of like you've got your passport out of this thing. You're immune to it now, and
right.
There's no, at least I haven't seen any, discrimination or bad actions towards people who've recovered from it.
Right.
Yeah, the only bad actions I've seen are the people protesting the fact that they can't go to Applebee's. They're being restricted from walking around and not wearing a mask, or being told that they should wear a mask. So they feel that their civil liberties are being affected somehow.
I do feel. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that the PTS, the post-traumatic stress of losing people at a rapid rate, is affecting people similarly to what it was like in my experience back in New York back in the 80s.
Right.
you didn't know who was going to become affected directly to you.
Right.
And it did affect many of us directly at that time.
I do feel like a taste of what the fear that sort of happens, surrounding, this virus, harkens back to, what I experienced in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my own PTSD has come up as a result of that. Like I've lived through, I'm a survivor of one plague. This one seems to be more sort of, I don't know, mysterious in some ways, because we don't have the testing. We don't have a way of knowing how to stay safe other than staying home. It's like, at least with AIDS, you could practice safe sex, and
eventually we knew that was going to help.
Right, and then there were just a cavalcade of different drugs that became available that kept us living, but the fear aspect of it is like a lot of these people are experiencing that. Some of the same people that were sort of oblivious to what we experienced being gay men are now getting a taste of that.
I also find that as clumsy as the federal response is to this pandemic, there was no federal response to it back to the
That's
AIDS.
true. That is true.
Except for the 5 minutes or the 30 seconds that Reagan spoke of it during his entire presidency.
Right. Almost everything that happened as a result of a grassroots, boots on the ground movement.
Yeah.
That forced Anthony Fauci and the CDC and all the NIH to do something. So.
Yep.
This is a weird segue, and I should have probably included it in the past section, but like one of the things I spoke with Dale about is that I've been able to observe you as a collaborator over the years that I've worked with you, and I've been so impressed with not only your availability but also your flexibility as well. I'm curious about what you think makes a good collaborator.
In a word, don't be a soloist.
Can you tell me a little bit what you mean by that? What do you mean, don't be a soloist?
Try not to let your own interpretations be the only interpretations you'll accept. I've always been a huge fan of ensemble works, even as a pianist, which is traditionally a solo instrument. They don't get used much in the orchestra. Only in much later works do you start seeing that. But if you're playing Mozart, Beethoven, the usual big works through the Romantic era, there's no piano in them. The only time there is, the piano is a soloist. And when you come from that as your training, and I grew up as a classical pianist, and that's what I went to college for. Ensemble playing was rarely a part of that experience. And so I started playing for choirs when I was, I think 13 was the first choir I played for. And I quickly learned that I preferred the ensemble experience over the solo experience. Even when I'm just doing piano works, my favorite piano works are duo and duet piano works. As a
composer, though, I mean, this is your work. This is your voice being, performed. Even then, I've seen you being very flexible with, artistic directors and the like, giving you feedback almost in the moment, and you being very receptive to it.
Well, part of that's the way I view composition in general. I mean, it's the same way. Mark, you're an actor, and I'm
Right.
sure you've experienced this. You get a script. These are the words that were put on the page, but there are some things that can't be put on the page, and we rely on the people who bring it to life to put their mark on it. So when a director is conducting one of my pieces, I often say, you do what you feel is in there. And it's going to be pretty rare that I'm going to come back and say, oh, no, that wasn't it.
Right. Well,
I would love for you to do that, though.
We all experienced a composer recently coming into the chorus and
right,
and sort of
very aggressively push you aside and sort of take over the keyboard and say, I mean, I got the fact, I get it. Like he's, you know, it's a shortcut. He wants to get it done. We have a certain amount of time to get to a point, but like I literally saw him push you aside and say, no, play it like this. And your response was like so brilliant. Like what was going on inside of you at the time?
I was in learning mode. I wanted to know what was in his head.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be mine.
Yeah.
That's why we love you, Karl.
Very open and accepting. That is great. I know
you're amazing. You're just an amazing man.
A lot of times when an author or a composer wants to direct their own work, it can be disastrous because they're too married to the piece. They're too close to it to see anything else. And so it's hard to give that breath and that freedom.
He not only was the composer, but he was also a performer, and he was being directed by, you know, a number of different people. So it was that was an interesting thing to watch, to see him sort of navigate all of that as well. I thought he was, you know, kind of, I don't know. It was an interesting experience.
I love how we're not mentioning the name, though.
No. I mean, we don't need to.
Not necessary. Not necessary to mention the name. Hey, Karl.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the 31 years of service that you've given and the wonderful music and support. And speaking for both Mark and I can't wait to get back into the rehearsals and to see your face and to hear you play live.
Agreed.
I can't wait either.
Yeah, it's my therapy, and it's my my food. Music is my food. If music be the food of life, play on. And looking forward to it again. Thanks for being with us here on the pod.
Thank you, Karl.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, have you ever eaten a chocolate chip cookie created by the Bearded Baking Company?
No, but I've eaten other kinds of chocolate chips.
Yeah. Well, if you're a member of the, you have. All right. Well, I'll tell you something. These cookies are amazing. I was so inspired just eating the cookie that I had to make a little commercial for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're a member of the Austin Gay Men's Chorus and you're a business owner and would like to promote your business, drop an email to us here at the AGMC One Voice at gmail.com. That's AGMC One Voice being spelled out at the gay men at the gmail.com. And we will talk to you about how we can bring One Voice can bring your product or service to the Austin Gay Men's Chorus community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners of the pod. Comments and suggestions for future pod topics are also appreciated at agmc1voice@gmail.com. And we'll be sure to answer all of your emails.
Don't forget to tune in to Glamazoom Tuesdays.
That's right. This coming Tuesday, May 5th.
The 5th, Cinco de Mayo.
Yes. All righty, Mark. That wraps it up for this week's pod. Again, we'd like to thank our guest, Karl Logue. And thank you, Mark, sending you big virtual hugs.
Thank you, Daly. Love you.
I love you too, and we'll talk very soon. Thanks again, everybody. We look forward to our next One Voice podcast.
We'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye now.